Welcome into the Jordy Culotta Show. Wave your hand out there, baby!
Shout out to the show.
She puts the pinky into the nostril. Man, look at that.
Healthy competition, there's nothing like it.
Y'all grow up.
The line's wrapped around the stadium.
Different strengths. I just lost a tooth.
It's going to be fun.
You know, we might have a story.
I love what you're doing.
Ogeron wants to take us fishing this afternoon.
Sharif, you play for the bad boys of the SEC, man. We don't apologize to anybody.
But a lot of people are saying you're going to be wearing number 7.
I don't really know. I want to.
He look crazy, Bill. Good feet on the old man.
This is from back then. I love.
We'll be right back with the Jordy Culotta Show. All right, welcome into a Wednesday edition of the Jordy Culotta Show, right here, built by our friends over at RMB Builders. Remember Rhett Bourgeois and his crew over at RMB. He's got a great Instagram where you can keep up with him, keep up with all the projects that they have going on. Our phone lines daily brought to you by Metropolitan Health Group, Real Doctors, Real Solutions. We're going to talk to Jacques Doucet coming up here at 8 a.m. Jacques going to be through at his regular 8 o'clock stop here on a Wednesday where we will recap LSU as the Tigers last night in baseball fall to UL as the Cajuns come in and beat LSU 8-5. So lucky enough for you, if you're going to be at Teague Field next Tuesday night for the Southern game, it'll be the ring ceremony for the Cajuns as they'll be unveiling their rings after last night's win.
You'd have thought, huh?
First win for UL over a number 1 team since 2014, and the Cajuns were fired up about it. LSU, I thought, look, not a lot of positive to take from the night, but one thing I think last night was about was possibly the return of Javen Coleman, somebody that you can maybe count on here as the season continues to progress. I thought in his inning of work, he looked really good. He struck out 2 and retired the side, but he was, in his minimal work after Tommy John surgery, in which Jay Johnson said following the game he's never seen an athlete return so fast from an injury, and it was really complimenting the rehab process that Coleman had really committed to over the last couple of months has really paid off for him last night, coming in a starting role versus UL. So hopefully if there's anything that last night can produce, and you hate to lose at any point, but last night in a midweek game versus the Cajuns, obviously they took that game very, very seriously. They were coming in very motivated, and LSU was looking to work on some things as far as getting their arms ready and seeing who they could count on. And hopefully Coleman could be another lefty that they could look at in crunch time or certain points of the remaining part of the season and step out there and possibly win a game for you. So, look, there's not a ton to take away. Beloso's first inning triple, Coleman, the way that he started the game. There were some high points last night, but ultimately nothing really that was beneficial to talk about outside of Coleman. I thought Coleman's work was something that you could really take away from last night and hopefully, can count on at some point in the remaining part of the season because they're going to need him. The pitching staff has become such a storyline for LSU in just the availability and the health of what's going on that if they could count on Coleman, man, that would be enormous. And in this first portion of seeing him, I thought he looked great.
But yeah, that kind of, with what you saw from Thatcher Hurd and what you saw from Coleman, if you can just kind of flip those roles and maybe you get Coleman to be able to be your third guy, either as your third Sunday starter, or if you can find a role for him out the bullpen just to be able to add an arm is what LSU really needed. And Riley Cooper didn't pitch poorly. He just had 2 bizarre situations that happened back-to-back where you had Trey Morgan lose the ball in left, like they just lost it in the sun, and then Dylan Cruz lost the ball in the sun.
I was in left field,
and you could not see.
Yeah, you couldn't see.
Like, they were just in the air, and you like.
Oh, they didn't
went
move,
up.
and that's how you could say like you could tell that they had no clue where the ball was.
Ooh,
So I
that's
mean,
scary.
it's two situations where that's not going to happen very often. So Riley Cooper, that's 2 outs, he would have been out the inning, and so you could take a little bit more away from Cooper's performance, who still seems to be in that role of Mr. Fix-It whenever they're in a tight spot. Thatcher comes in, doesn't pitch well, insert Cooper, and then becomes Johnny Holstaff kind of throughout the night as LSU gets ready for the weekend. So, I mean, good on UL for throwing their arms and getting real excited about the win. The guy that closed it out looks like he had closed out Game 7 of the World Series. I'm excited for you, brother. That's good deal. Yeah.
Everybody clap it up for you.
Yeah.
Everybody give you a little smash.
I mean, yeah, Dylan Cruz hit 111 off the bat right at somebody to drop under 500. So,
Yeah.
it's just bad. It's just bad everywhere for LSU baseball. Best player in the country isn't hitting 500 anymore.
Tough.
Beloso's third triple of his career.
Yeah.
He was motoring.
I would have taken the under on that.
I thought they were gonna send him home. For a second, he making a wide turn around second. It looked like he's like, dude, I think I'm gonna get inside the Parker. And the big stop sign, big fella.
Gotta get big.
But it was awesome because it looked like it caromed off the pole and right, like it went over the fence, but they misplayed it, so it rolled all the way into center, and Beloso was yugging.
See, the strange thing to me is like how Trey Morgan caught. Did you see the other ball he caught? The one he ran into the fence for?
Oh, that's his favorite play to make.
So I was kind of confused because, like, how do you get lost on the first one?
If you just don't see it off the bat, you may not ever see it again.
That is true. But I was just kind of confused as to how he got lost on the first one and didn't get lost on the one he had to run into the fence for.
Yeah, and also don't get it twisted. Tennessee lost last night, and so did Vanderbilt. Yeah. So that was LSU's first midweek loss of the year. I think they're going to be okay.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, come on. I'm not doing this show. I'm not doing this. We've done this too many times. I mean, we're not melting over a Tuesday night loss for the number one team in the country after the way that they performed all year, and possibly a really positive story could come out of last night. I think, and Javen Coleman. Forget the loss. I mean, it's going to happen, and you move on, and you head to Oxford, and you get back on track. Hopefully, what you take away from it is that you get another arm.
Right.
Is that you get another pitcher, somebody that you can count on. If Coleman can stay healthy and can be reliable and stay at a high level, I mean, that would be enormous for LSU. That would be huge for LSU. They need that type of news at this point. I mean, a lot of it over the last couple of weeks, especially at that position at the pitching spot, has been very negative. It's been very, setting back and losing numbers and losing quality guys and guys that you can count on, and Garrett Edwards and Chase Shores. So if they could get, some opposite news of,
had a guy,
Javen Coleman, yeah, absolutely, adding someone to the rotation that you can trust, that's reliable and a dog. I mean, that'd be huge, because it doesn't seem as if Thatcher Hurd is going to catch on. Same with Christian Little. I thought on Saturday versus Kentucky was really good for 3 innings. I mean, in the fourth he just could not find it. So I mean, in limited time these guys can help you. I don't know where Thatcher Hurd fits in right now. I think they're trying to figure that out. As far as if he's a guy that you can even count on as the season starts to close. But if Coleman is, that would be a welcomed addition for sure.
And you'll keep that,
entire staff.
Absolutely. And I think you'll keep seeing Thatcher Hurd in this midweek role until he's able to string together, whether it be 1 inning or 4 innings or something, because they're going to try to find a role for him, because they brought him in for a reason, and he pitched well early on in the year. But now it seems like the wheels have kind of fallen off there. So they're going to keep giving him every opportunity to get right in game scenarios. Him, and you might see Little in that role a little bit too. But it just depends on what they want to do with Coleman and how slowly they want to bring him along. But like you said, good to have, because if you don't have Coleman and you see that from Thatcher Hurd, that's when you get the Chicken Littles out for sure.
It's looking real dark down there.
Right. And I think a lot of what people are saying LSU came out flat, I think they were up for the first inning to see Coleman throw, and then they're like, all right, deep breath, like, thank God. Then it kind of takes the air out the building when he wasn't going to come back for the second inning regardless. But I think that was more of what the game was about for LSU was, let's see if we can have a guy and see how he performs. he gets 2 strikeouts and gets a clean sheet in the first, and you're like, okay,
that's
now
good
we can
news.
move. Yeah, we can move along here.
Right. Yeah, I think that was the biggest takeaway of last night. Anything else, I think, we're getting caught in the weeds.
Yeah.
If, from LSU standpoint, I think that they regroup and head to Oxford and try and get it right. Some other news yesterday coming from campus before the LSU baseball game and falling to the Cajuns 8-5 at the box last night. Matt McMahon continues to pick up local talent. I don't know how big of a surprise this is. We were talking a little bit about this last week that Santa Clara guard Carlos Stewart, former Dunham standout, a Baton Rouge native who was averaging 15 points here this season as a sophomore, has transferred in to LSU. LSU also added a 7-foot forward transfer, Will Baker from Nevada, earlier this week as well. So Matt McMahon and the crew doing work. And like we said, they got a little bit of the blueprint from Ken Mulkey and Brian Kelly talking about rebuilding a roster. First things first, go find people that want to be here. And 3 out of the 4 transfers for Matt McMahon have local ties to Louisiana and specifically to Baton Rouge. When you're talking about Jordan Wright, who transferred in from Vanderbilt, who was a standout at the Dunham School, alongside Carlos Stewart, who's been out at Santa Clara the past couple of years. Of course, Stewart and Wright played for Jonathan Pixley over at the Dunham School, won a couple of state titles while they were playing alongside one another. And then Jordan
Jordan Wright?
No, Jalen Cook.
Jalen Cook.
Jalen Cook is the third transfer in from Walker, Louisiana. Of course, was Baton Rouge and South Louisiana ties. Actually started his career at LSU before transferring to Tulane and coming back. And then they add Will Baker from Nevada earlier this week. He's a versatile 7-footer. If you've seen him play, he's not your typical back to the basket. When you hear 7 feet tall, you think very limber and somebody that's not too agile. Where Baker is, he's a little bit of a different player. He's got some athleticism to him. He's got some movement to him. He's a little a change of pace kind of a 7-footer. So good news for Matt McMahon and the crew as they continue to add talent here to LSU in the offseason, as Carlos Stewart is the third transfer to join from Baton Rouge. When you're talking about, like we said, Jordan Wright and Jalen Cook coming in this season. So Matt McMahon and the crew doing work. They need more. They got to get out and get more, but a good start for them here in this offseason.
Have you seen anything from Carlos Stewart? Have you ever seen him play? I know
absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen both those guys play while they were at Dunham. In fact, I watched those guys play against Arch their freshman year.
Against Newman?
When Newman came in. And they were obviously both of those guys were standout in the Dunham School. And when they came from that program, I mean, that was probably the golden age of that program when you're talking about the kind of the latter part of Pixley's run over there at Dunham, where he reeled off a couple of state championships and was showing up to the game nearly every year. So it was I mean, Stewart is he's a twitchy type.
Cuz.
What's that?
It's my cousin.
Is it?
No.
But somebody that can beat you off the dribble, somebody that can get to the rim. He's physically, he's real. He's got a D1 SEC type body. He can take the aggressive beating of playing in the league every night. I think him and Jordan Wright obviously have a familiarity of one another, of playing alongside each other. That's good for the chemistry early on. But just another quality ball handler. I come from the school when thinking of basketball teams is that you can never have too many guards or ball handlers. And I know that when you look at the NBA, and we'll talk a little bit about the NBA playoffs as they're rolling on here. I mean, the more that the season goes on, you win with bigger guys. I think, you usually see the big game. I mean, when's the last time a guard has led a team to a championship outside of Steph? Think about it. When's the face of a championship really been a guard? Toronto and Kawhi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But even him, I kind of consider a small forward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd probably say like the Bucks. The Bucks won it when Giannis. Giannis led them to the championship that year. He's a power forward center.
No, I'm saying when's the last time that a guard outside of Steph? Like they were all big, like Giannis, LeBron. All these guys, KD. It was.
Oh, Chris Paul would love to be the one to say he's done it, but he hasn't been able to.
They knotted the series up last night.
Yeah, scratch his name on that list. But I guess that shows the transformation what the NBA is, right? Like all of these guys can now be primary ball handlers, where you don't really have.
Well, the NBA is going to a positionless type game, and you can even start to see it at the lower level. Where guys are being asked who would normally be centers on even younger level teams that are being asked to handle the ball, bring the ball up the floor. It's a different style. It's more of the European influence on basketball. That's really when the game went internationally and went global. That's really where you started to see these guys like Dirk, who could, was a
Luka.
7-footer who could handle it. Who could bring the ball up. They were some of the, they were some of the outliers. Now it's becoming exactly what the game is. It's nothing but a bunch of guys that can play every spot. They can guard every spot, that's how basketball is trending.
But speaking of guard play, think somebody was in town last night.
Haley Van Lith. Yeah, I think this is. We should be getting some news. In fact, I was eating lunch yesterday over at Rocco's, and I met my stepfather over there, and he and I were. Sitting down eating a po' boy, and somebody walked up to me while we were there and said, "What do you think the chances that Haley commits today?" And I'm like sitting there like thinking like,
huh?
I really and truly, I've kind of been under the assumption that the Van Lith stuff is done. Really, I think that everything is kind of a formality from here on out. I would anticipate some news here in the next, today. I would think that everybody wants to wrap this process up pretty quickly. But a lot of what we were speculating a couple of weeks ago turned out to be true with confirmation of Angel Reese and, Coach Reedus, really kind of confirming that on Twitter of, people are jumping in the portal and they want to play with LSU. They want to come to LSU. LSU's the hottest brand in women's college basketball right now. It has a feel to it of it's the cool place to be. And then when you talk to Angel Reese and you find out what she's making from an NIL standpoint and the people that she can introduce you to if you come to LSU and kind of get yourself set up to where, you could be either the next Angel Reese or in Haley Van Lith's standpoint, she could be her own entity, her own business model from what she could accomplish playing at this program right now. So, I anticipate her to commit to LSU at some point publicly, whether it's today or this weekend. I don't know, but really and truly, without sounding like an arrogant prick, where else would she go? Really, like
there was talk of Iowa.
Yeah.
But where else has she visited?
Nowhere. Did she watch the game? Have you seen Haley Van Lith play?
Mm-hmm.
When what they tried to make that game, or what that game became, to me, that national championship game for women's college basketball essentially was the 1979 Magic Johnson, Larry Bird national championship game between Michigan State and Indiana State, where college basketball really took off then. It had people watching that game that normally weren't checked into the sport. We talk about the numbers that game put up, 9.9 million viewers on average. It peaked at nearly 13 million people watching that game. Everybody left with a feeling or some type of opinion about it. And then afterwards to see the way that Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark were kind of billed against one another, a good, a good,
a superhero story,
right?
Like
I mean,
good villain.
It was a tale as old as time. I mean, we've seen this before, but for women's college basketball, it was their Magic versus Bird moment where they had to capitalize, and they did. They did. I mean, Angel Reese is still out in the mainstream. People are still talking about her. People are still really, kind of drawn to her, whether it's podcast, whether it's brands, whether it's just following her on social media. And after watching Haley Van Lith play, she feels more like the LSU side. I mean, if that's what we're going to do here, if it's going to be like the Magic Bird thing, and I'm not making it about race and I'm not making it about anything. It's just that's what the story has become afterwards. And credit Caitlin Clark for coming out and just saying, look, she respects Angel Reese. She celebrated. I mean, like all that stuff was acceptable. I mean, like I still can't believe that some of these conversations that we're having about competition and pitchers getting thrown out of games for celebrating strikeouts and, people coming down on Angel Reese for celebrating a national championship. I mean, like, where are we? But Haley Van Lith feels a lot more like LSU than she does Iowa.
Yeah, she was the one that Caitlin Clark told to shut up, you're down 15.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I'm still going to talk my shit.
Right, like, Haley, come over here.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's been pointed out, and I think you would almost have to be blind and not be able to see it, but she looks like Kim Mulkey 2.0.
Yeah.
Like, whether the hair and the play style, she could probably shoot it a little bit better, but just like the attitude and demeanor, you don't think that they're going to be standing next to each other every game when she's running point? Like, she's going to get coached up by Kim Mulkey every possession down the court.
And look, she's got the full court press on her. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a player that Mulkey was going after out of high school that she missed. That don't play well, right? I mean, like, that's not something that you usually get a second chance on if you're in that position, right? I mean, there's a lot of college football coaches that would have they'll love another chance at recruiting a player that they missed on. Now they have that opportunity. Mulkey is in that situation right now where she's on top of the world. She's on top of the sport. And a player that she really, really wanted and really went after 2 years ago coming out of high school and had Baylor as a finalist, she nearly was able to get but just missed on as Van Lith pledged to Louisville. Now she has another chance at her. And now she's doing it dangling a national championship ring in front of her face with relationships built in to show Haley Van Lith that you can maximize your NIL capabilities nowhere better than in Baton Rouge. And if you need an example, check out Angel. And that's what the formula is right now. And for LSU, I've talked to people that are close to the program, that are in the program. They're turning people away. They're having internal conversations of either accepting people that want to come in or starting to process the people that are on campus. That is a conversation that's very sensitive, but ultimately it's a good problem to have. When you only have 15 spots and you got 25 people wanting in, you can start to get a little selective. And it's my feeling, and I feel very strongly that Haley Van Lith is going to be an LSU Tiger. It's only a matter of time. And that just may be the first domino to fall this offseason. I mean, they're just getting started, really.
Didn't they only have 10 scholarship players?
Yeah.
And then they lost 2 to the draft. So now they have 7 spots to fill. Yeah. And then you have recruiting, obviously.
I mean, you got the number 1 recruiting class in the country coming in with 4 top 50 players. And then you're talking about 3 more spots where you could add, or you could start to look at people on your, which is a very tough conversation, right? And coming off the national championship, I mean, these are conversations that are sometimes expected, but they're still very, very difficult, where you have to sit somebody down and you have to say, we need your spot. I mean, it's just that simple. You know, I mean, it comes down to evaluation, and they believe that there's a better player at a certain spot. I mean, it's the dirty part. It's the underbelly of college sports, but it happens everywhere. It happens every year, and it happens to the best teams, really, because the best teams have to recognize that they have to make a move to get over the top or to stay at the top.
I mean, yeah, Jay Johnson had to do it with LSU baseball. Once you start to see these, like, the portal guys come rolling in, there's only so many scholarship opportunities you have available, and that's when the job gets hard, right? It's one thing to go out and find the talent, then it's the next thing to have to sit down with the kid that you recruited, offer a scholarship, and say, hey, look, I'm trying to win a national championship. This is my job.
Right.
I have to.
Well, I don't even think you have to go there. Like, I think all of that stuff's understood.
Yeah.
When you get to this point, and when you get to a program like LSU at the level now that they're winning at, and the level that their expectation sits at, all of that is felt every single day. As soon as you swing open the door to walk in the facility, you feel it. Like, this is great. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There's greatness everywhere. There's trash on the floor. Places like, immaculate. They got national championship trophies. They got the number one class coming in. There's just this feeling of this is a good place to be as far as college basketball, women's sports is concerned. And all of that's kind of baked into it. Like, I don't think that you have to sit down and say, we're trying to win. No, like, we're winning
now.
And this is how it happens, right? And we're doing it with this level of player, and you just don't meet that standard. I mean, that's what that.
And I'll help you go wherever you think you want to go in the portal. I can talk to coaches for you.
Brutal.
I'll find you a spot somewhere, because that's when you have to use your relationships on the coaching end to be like, look, everybody's probably working together at some form or fashion in the portal whenever you have a kid that you think can play, obviously, at some point. And then you're like, all right, well, it's not going to be here. I can find you a spot somewhere else.
Right.
If you want to continue to play.
No, that's.
And I imagine Mulkey has those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what coaching is. I mean, coaching is a very incestuous trade.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, for as much as they may bark at one another on sidelines, they're all at the coaches' conventions together. They're all at these meetings together. They're all going through the same recruit's house. They're all going through the same circuits in the offseason to find players. I mean, they spend a lot of time together just sitting in bleachers watching games. So, I mean, these conversations are very easy. Text message of, hey, I've got a couple of players you may be interested in. One of the interesting positions that was named, and switching gears here, remember, Daily, we're brought to you by Katie's Restaurant. Looking forward to getting down to New Orleans today. I got a couple of meetings in the city, and really looking forward to spending the day down there. We're going to catch lunch over with our friend Scott Clark and Katie's. We've got a meeting over there, and looking forward to it. And getting back into Katie's over on Iberville Street. Online, remember, katiesinmidcity.com. katiesinmidcity.com is the online address where you can search all of the menu options. They have a sister restaurant over in Lakeview called Francesca's by Katie's, which is a sandwich deli that's a fantastic spot. But if you're in town today, or if you're passing through, or if you're a New Orleanian thinking about lunch, stop into Katie's. Remember, Katie's is a taste of New Orleans. It's a feel of New Orleans. It's a great spot to get a real good vibe of the city, man. Looking forward to getting over there and catching up with Scott as we'll be in there at lunchtime today for a little bit of business that we have going on down in New Orleans. It's a great place to do something like that, or it's a great place to get a cold beer on a beautiful day in New Orleans. Check them out, katiesinmidcity.com. katiesinmidcity.com is the spot down in New Orleans. Brian Kelly was speaking earlier this week, and the layout and structure of Brian Kelly's role has really started to pop up, and trying to get an understanding of how Kelly really runs his department, right? Runs LSU football. And as we said, very impressed. I am very impressed with how Kelly just operates, man. I think he's he's very much one of these success-driven, process-built people who, really kind of go through the day-to-day grind of it to build the outcome, and is able to install a lot of people and procedures in place that make the operation run. It has been very impressive and very much a learning experience. In covering people like Brian Kelly, and I learned this young in the industry and meeting people, and not meeting people, but just able to cover people like Nick Saban, and cover people who were building programs like that. You could learn so much from them in the way that, they run the organization. As we said yesterday, these are CEO roles. These are organizational, seats that you're counting on this position to really kind of be looking out rather than looking down at the operation. They need to be kind of looking forward and thinking and making sure that they're staying up on hiring and recruiting and bringing the best people in and staying up with the technology and staying up with all of the, the data resources that you can get feedback on. And, hearing Brian Kelly speak about these types of procedures that they have in place and kind of going through the process of building that has been, at least for me, pretty cool and a learning experience, kind of, to say the least. And one of the names that came up in building LSU football, and there's a couple of people that are close to him that he really kind of keeps at an arm's length and really trusts. I know, that you hear the name Beth come up all the time when, talking about Brian Kelly and somebody who was always, kind of close to her, to him. Beth Rex is her name, and she is labeled the chief of staff, and she came with him from Notre Dame. She handles, kind of the day-to-day operations of LSU football. She kind of handles external relations with, organizations like TAF and booster clubs. LSU Sports Properties, count on Brian Kelly a lot and his schedule. They deal directly with Beth. Another position that doesn't get a lot of notoriety, but someone that Brian Kelly really, really relies on, and you can tell by some of the things that Kelly says about him. And The Athletic did a profile on Dr. D.F. Arnold, who is labeled LSU's Director of Player Development. And his position is really built around player relatability and connections to the players. And I think it's a very smart, it's a very forward thinking, it's very much a part of running the organization that you may take for granted, but having somebody in place to really oversee that and report back on that, I think is impressive for Kelly's organization to have. It's the first time that I've seen somebody at least labeled like that. I'm sure that there are structures and people that already exist on many college campuses that share the same responsibilities that Dr. D.F. Arnold does, but to label it like LSU has, I think is pretty cool. And once you get to kind of know and read, and like we said, Brody Miller did a deep dive on Dr. Arnold back in September, back in the beginning of fall. You get an idea of why he is so relatable. If you remember Micah Baskerville's story last year, Baskerville was going through some academic issues heading into the season. He was waiting on a ruling from the university to decide whether or not he was going to be eligible for his senior season. And in building up to that, obviously he had some really down days. He had some dark times, in which he was kind of going through some mental problems, some mental health things of football being possibly taken away from him like that. And Dr. Arnold just kind of walked up to him one day in the cafeteria when he saw him walking up at him and just saw a look on his face and saw kind of the way his body language was presented in the way that he was walking, and was able to kind of get into Baskerville a little bit, right? Not right at that moment, right? I think Baskerville was kind of a little taken back in that moment because of the way that Dr. Arnold approached him with, yo, man, what's on your mind? I can tell you're looking at me with some thoughts of, who am I and what's my, what am I doing here? And it kind of set Baskerville back, but that, introduction, if you will, really led to a meeting once a week after Baskerville 3 days later was cleared to play his senior season. He was spending a lot of time with Arnold and just not talking a lot of football, just talking about life and really getting to know somebody and opening up and, really, kind of finding what motivates people and finding what matters to people, finding what's your why, right? I mean, if you're working along somebody or if you're a goal-driven person, I think you all kind of recognize, what's your why? Why do you get out of bed every day? You know what I mean? Why do you go through the long days? Why do you struggle at times in trying to figure stuff out at work? Why do you go through all of this? What is it? And for somebody like Arnold, who I have seen bouncing around, just the program. If you cover the program, you see him moving around and you see him, on the sideline. You see him a part of practice, and you recognize how much he's counted on. It's easy to see why he is in that position. And then when you read about him, he's a guy who flunked out of high school. He had 2.0 GPA, never went to class. Somebody that I think more of us can relate to. I know that's not everybody's life. I know that there's a section and a portion of all of you out there that, look, you followed the rules. You went to class. You did what you're supposed to do. You took care of your business and you graduated. For the majority of the people out there, that's not the case, really, or at least at that time in their life. And for the ability to be able to relate to somebody that's not that age or around that demographic and, is a part of a program and an organization that you're trying to be involved with and be significant at. He is talking about Dr. Arnold, is a incredible resource, I believe. And for Brian Kelly to really hold him and his opinion so close, I think says, more about the leadership style of how impressive Kelly is in the way that he runs the program. I know we talked a little bit about him yesterday, and I won't do the same, segment that we did in talking about him. But it's just in continuing to learn about his program and the things that he pays attention to and the things that he sets as important on the staff and to the players and to running the organization. I think it's great for all of us to kind of take in, or at least I'm speaking for me. I'm starting a company, and a lot of the company is built on, people equity, persons, just human beings, and finding what motivates people. It's not the same for everyone. It's sometimes scary thinking that someone might be right for a position, but they also might be out of their role. It's a challenge to be in the position that Kelly is, to find the right people for each spot to make sure he's maximizing the output of the program every day, and to have this guy in Dr. Arnold to be, in the position he is, to be relating to the players and providing feedback to Coach Kelly. And some of the things are confidential. I don't think that he's by any means, kind of a teacher's pet or a tattletale or anything that you might think of, that position to be. It's more of, look, man, this is what they're going through. Recognize that when you're talking to this guy, understand that he may be going through this issue back at home that we had no idea. His mom had the lights shut off, or his brother was, lost his job, or, whatever it may be. We all of us have adversity. All of us have situations that are going on that, are stressing us out, right? I mean, all of us have something that you're concerned with. And when you're counted on by other people to pull your weight or show up to do your part of the process, it's beneficial for as many people, or at least the people in the decision-making roles, to understand what you're going through. And for Dr. Arnold, I think that's kind of his role, not to necessarily be everybody's therapist, but just to, hey man, this is who Micah Baskerville is. Guy's stressing out, thinking about what he's going through, what could possibly he could lose. Let's do this for him, and let's show that we support him, and you're going to get the best out of him. And Baskerville, look at what happened to him last season. I think Baskerville is going to be a pro. I really do. And I mean, it won't be all because of Dr. Arnold, but I think you look back and you see what that did for him. It opened him up. It made him more trusting. It made him a better person by the way that he admits it. And man, I think that there's a part and a role for that in every organization. It's like the Zion stuff that we talked about. By no means do I want to discount mental health. By no means do I want to overlook the importance of making sure that stuff is right. But doesn't it seem like life would be easier for David Griffin and possibly even Willie Green, the head coach, if there was some type of middleman between Zion and the general manager, the president of operations, and the head coach, to get an understanding of this is what motivates him, man. This is his why. Putting a weight clause in his contract is probably going to turn him off. But if you have to put the weight clause in the contract, the way to keep him motivated on it is to talk to him about this, or treat him like this, or make sure you mention this when dealing with him. It may sound, very like that's ridiculous, but in today's day and age, when you've got such an age gap, Brian Kelly is 60, right? I mean, 60 years old, trying to relate to a 21-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 19-year-old, while he's recruiting them, a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old. He's not supposed to know.
Dancing on the podium.
I mean, he's not supposed to get it. He's not supposed to relate, right? But he needs somebody between him and that person that says, here's how you relate, or here's what they're going through. And if you want to get to them, this would be the most effective way to do that. And I just think it's another key role in the organization for LSU football, which shows that they're headed in the right direction and they're building a consistent winner. I mean, it's a position that I think in today's day and age that, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you'd have said, what? They do what? And to me, it makes a lot of sense, and it's a position that I think you'll see more organizations throwing money at and putting them around decision makers. I really do. I think it's just another role that when you read about it, and Dr. D.K. Arnold, like I said, there is a write-up about him back in a September edition of an Athletic article that Brody went into, but Brian Kelly speaking this week, he was talking about the people that are, just around him. You just learn more about him and the roles for the people within the building. And Dr. Arnold seems to be somebody that that Brian Kelly really counts on, really trusts, and really puts a lot of responsibility on, the feedback of the feel of the team. And that, think about if you'd have had a middleman between Michael Jordan and Jerry Krause. Rather than okay, look, it's obvious. You two guys can't stand each other. Right? But for Krause, for you to succeed, you need him. Jordan, you want to keep playing? You want to keep playing with the Bulls? He's got to agree to it. Somebody in between them saying, this is how it needs to work. Well, they had agents. They didn't work. It didn't work. You had to find the right person. You got to find Dr. Arnold. You got to find the person that can get the best out of everybody. And that Brian Kelly, the 60-year-old that doesn't relate to, the majority of his workforce, can go to and open up his office door and say, tell me what I need to know. Sit down. Here's what your running back's going through. Here's what your offensive lineman had happen to him last week. Here's what your defensive tackle's got the phone call from his mom about this. And, your assistant coach just got a call from his dad and he's sick. Okay. I mean, coach me through it. How to, what's some of the ways to get the message across of support, love, and motivation. And, those roles are built in to help people do that. I think it's a fantastic example of Kelly's commitment to the program.
I mean, it goes to show the difference between how Brian Kelly runs the program, and I mean, I'm not to bang on Ed, but this would have never been a spot available under Orgeron. Doesn't it feel like that? Where this is how the SWAT teams happen. This is how the team starts to understand like accountability and what is expected, and this is how you change a culture. It doesn't always have to be a tyrannical type of situation. It can be you have a guy in between where it's, hey, my door's always open.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're getting lost in the sauce, if you're lost in the shuffle, you don't want to get fussed at or yelled at, you don't feel like you have anybody to talk to, he's always there. And that's like whatever after reading the article is like people are bouncing into his office every 20 minutes. And it was probably so hard for him to get one person in a week. And then it became it snowballs. And you can see the changes that it makes in people's lives, and you can see the culture that's changed at LSU. And that's probably one of the more necessary positions at a school like LSU, where you have people from all different socioeconomic backgrounds where things are tough. You don't know who to trust, but I want to play football. And then you have to understand the importance of, right, well, if you want to play football, you have to do these three things first. And that's why I think the SWAT team was so important. Like it showed, all right, if you don't do this, you dock this. And that doesn't hurt you, it hurts them. And so that's how you build culture. That's how you build accountability.
It's real life stuff.
Right.
Too, right? I think the feedback from Baskerville, and at least reading it, was, hey, man, it really was like, I'm accountable.
We want to fight him. He's like, why are you sizing me up? He's like, no, you sizing me up. And he's like, okay. And he started to tell me, he's like, he didn't even know who he was. And for him to be able to have that kind of approach, he doesn't tell him how old he is on purpose, because he wants to be seen as a peer, not as somebody that is, authoritarian or a leader or somebody that you should be afraid of. It's a person that you can go to, and we're on equal footing. I'm just here to help.
Right.
And I think that's huge for LSU.
Yeah, I think once they realize that, he's there to get the best out of them. Once a relationship is understood, where it's like, you're using me. Well, yeah, I am. And you can use me as well, right? Like, I need you to be the best football player that you can be, and I understand for you to be the best football player, you got to clear your head. Like, you got to get some stuff out. You got to talk about some stuff, man. There's some stuff that you're dealing with that you probably hadn't even thought about talking about that you need to, so you can be better for us, right? And I'm here for you to get that out. And once we can build that trust that says, my door is open, and when you walk through it that I got your back and that I'm not going to sabotage you, and I'm going to help you out, and it serves me best to do that. Right? Like, it serves me best. I'm not trying to get anything that I don't deserve out of you. You know what I'm trying to get out of you. You know the expectations going into it. So there's no blurred lines. There's no, kind of the gray. Right? It's very defined. And once that wall is broken down, it's very powerful what you can do to people. I think even Baskerville was saying, like, he was kind of fighting some things even after their relationship had really grown into something that he trusted and loved. And, Arnold had to tell him, he's like, bro, you're battling your old self. It's your old self kind of saying, hey, man, you got some new habits and doing some new things that I'm unfamiliar with. I'm a little uncomfortable with. Right? And you just got to fight through it. And, once it was Like even having conversations like that. Think about if you're in an executive role. Think about if you're in a management role. Think if you're in a production role where you've got to produce today. You got to get up out of bed. You're driving in right now, and you got to get numbers, man. You got to close deals. You got to bring people into the organization. You got to align people. You got to keep people thinking straight. But you got stuff going on in your head that you're dealing with. You and the lady are fighting at home. The kid's going through some things. Whatever it may be. You owe bills. Whatever it is you're taking with you into that. How good would it be for you to have a 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute conversation with somebody just to exhale? Just to say, this is what I got. But I need to be great here. But I got to fight through this first before I can even really kind of get there. Cool, man. Sit down. Tell me what you got. I'm dealing with this at home. I'm dealing with this at work. I'm dealing with this financially. I'm dealing with this from a parenting standpoint. Whatever your instant is, your situation is.
And for college kids or college athletes, Rob Boudreaux brings up a great point. Social media, I would imagine that's just because they're on it all the time. They see the good, bad, ugly of everything that comes out about them, because you would be shocked at how many people or how many athletes like Twitter search their name. Like it doesn't they don't have to be mentioned or added or you don't have to tag them. They're just looking to see what people are saying about them. This is a great weapon for but get out of that. You don't have to go look at that or figure a way to cope with it.
How many of those athletes have alerts set for any time their name is mentioned?
KD.
Yeah.
I mean, even at that level. And it really...
Look at Russell Westbrook.
KD's generation is not really affected by it. He's kind of an outlier.
Yeah.
He's one that's kind of really gripped onto that where, the majority of his generation does not really take it in like him. The generation after him does. And I hear where H-Town Creole, he's laughing. Kids are soft these days. These kids have to deal with more BS now than we were when we were younger. They're woke to this BS, and this is why NIL saved NCAA. Look, I'm with you. It's a totally different world now, and I'm not going to be caught up in doing, kind of back in my day guy. It is different. It's totally different. And they have access. My son could train year-round now on 3 corners in Baton Rouge right now. There's a X Factor on the corner of Jefferson and Drusilla. There's Traction on the corner of Burbank and GSRI. There's places like Marucci on Segan Lane. There's places like Athletes First, I believe, on Airline off of Airline on a side street there. There are places to train year-round for athletes that are not college level and pro level guys. I'm talking about for 10-year-olds. They have nutritionists. They have access to all of this training and technology. It's a totally different world, man. I was talking about, we're starting to have the conversation of high school in my house, right? My son is he's in his second semester of his 6th grade year. So he's going into 7th grade next year. You're starting to talk about these things, where they're going to go to high school. And some of the big things that people are still talking about, at least in our friend circle, it's done around a lot of, AAU basketball gyms and, football fields, is where our kids are going to go to school, right? And a lot of it is kind of talked about, the reputation of certain schools not allowing multi-sport athletes. Right now, our kids, look, man, my kid doesn't have a girlfriend. My kid doesn't have a driver's license. I know that their priorities change once those things come into his life. But right now, he wants to play multi-sports in high school. And a lot of his peers do as well. And there's a perception that the athlete now has become so year-round that it's almost impossible to do that in high schools, which I think is very sad, because I think that's what high school is about. You look back, and it's kind of the last time in your life you can play everything you want to play. You want to sign up for track and field, sign up for track and field. You want to wrestle, You want to play baseball? Play baseball. Because after this, odds are you can't do it. And I think with the, specialized training of all, and look, my son's not affected by it as much as other people are because he doesn't play baseball. A lot of these are baseball parents being very concerned about where their kid's going to play baseball at the next level because a lot of these teams, they're already selected because these kids are playing year round. It's something I think is affecting that level of sports, right? I mean, look, I'll never disagree with the interview I had with Jimmy Burrow. And Burrow has told us, I know he told it to me when I was on the radio over at ESPN, and I know he said it here on this show, that Joe Burrow was going to play basketball up until he was a junior in high school. He had one football offer, and it was the school that his dad coached for, Ohio. He was going to go play basketball somewhere. And then his senior season, Ohio State fell in love with him and gave him he didn't have a lot of offers, but he thought he was going to be a basketball player. And a lot of the reason why his footwork was so advanced, Jimmy said, at these football camps was because of his basketball background. He gave baseball a shot during his freshman and sophomore year of high school. He ran track and threw the javelin for his high school. Joe Burrow was an athlete that could not get enough competition, is how his dad explained it, and wanted all of it and encouraged him to do that. This is coming from a football coach. And he said that he credits Joe Burrow playing multi-sports growing up for him to be so advanced at the times he was. I mean, how far advanced was he in college to the competition his senior year? He was 5 years better than those guys on the field. And I'm not saying because he played multi-sports, but he has that background. And his dad, who is in football, encouraged him to play as many sports as possible. Get as much competition and get as much learning as you can. And to me, the experience in high school has become so strained on focus on baseball, focus on basketball. You're a football player. You have to run the 4x1. You got to train all year long. It's like, man, they've lost this experience. They've lost the letter jacket experience, right? Not that I'm saying that everybody wants their letter jacket, but I mean, some people just get their letter jacket and put it in the back of the closet, but you have the letter jacket commemorating all of the things that you did. Isn't it cool to see the letter jacket of the guy or the girl that just played everything? You know what I mean? It's got damn, how do you fit all this stuff? And you got to imagine that when they think about it or look at it, you're like, damn, my high school experience was awesome. I went to high school with Shelley Ripple. Shelley Ripple missed the Olympics, I believe, by a tenth of a second in swimming. And when I tell you she was a focused athlete, she swam miles before school and miles after school every single day. And I really kind of came to know Shelley when she was a senior, kind of at the end of the process. And you could even see it in her face then. It was like, man, I'd love to see her play softball. You know what I mean? I'd love to see her play volleyball. I'd love to see her play multi-sports. But she was so committed to being that athlete that now I kind of wonder if someone like her, not her, but of her status, of her level, of her type of coordination, looks back on her time there and says, man, I wish I could have. I mean, could you imagine Shelley Ripple spiking a volleyball? She was just a freak athlete. I mean, we used to pick up the football with her and throw it to her on the football field. I mean, she catch it one hand, throw it back on the run, perfect spiral, not even warmed up. I mean, it was scary how athletic she was. So I'm off on a rant. Jock's here waiting. We'll be back with the second hour here of the Jordy Culotta Show. Brought to you daily by Premier South Roofing. Premier South Roofing. Remember, get in touch with our friends over at Premier South today. They are Louisiana's premier roofing experts. Online at premiersouthlA.com. They're in Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Lafayette, North Shore, coming soon to Daphne and Fairhope, Alabama. But if you need residential roofing, commercial roofing, metal roofing, roof repair, roof maintenance, if you need helps with gutters and awnings, get in touch with PremierSouthLA.com today. PremierSouthLA.com is where you find them online. Premier South Roofing and Sheeting and Sheet Metal online at PremierSouthLA.com. If your roof is 8 years or older, odds are you qualify for a brand new roof. You definitely qualify for a free inspection from one of the pros over at Premier South LA, PremierSouthLA.com. All you got to do is log on, give them your information. You'll have a pro on your roof today. See if you need a new roof or if you need some roof maintenance. Get it done here before the summer months come and the rain really hits. PremierSouthLA.com, PremierSouthLA.com. JD next. Donaldsonville Glass and Body, the trusted name in frame, body, and automotive paint repair since 1977. They have served their customers for over 45 years. You can find them online at dgbauto.com or stop in and see them Railroad Avenue and Division Street out in Donaldsonville, Louisiana. Look, they can help you with your insurance claims. They can make the repair process as stress-free as possible. I'm speaking from experience here. I've got numerous windshields, body repair, all done by Kenny and the crew over at Donaldsonville Glass and Body. They are, without question, the most well-equipped shop in the area. Stop in and see them today. Shop them online, dgbauto.com, or stop in and see the crew over in Division Street in Donaldsonville, Louisiana. Donaldsonville Glass and Body. Hey fellas, it's Jordy Culotta for my friends over at Men's Total Health. Guys, do you suffer from fatigue, decreased libido, erectile dysfunction, weight gain or loss of muscle mass, signs of depression, anxiety, hair loss, mental fog, general loss of interest? Then you might be suffering from low testosterone. Go see my friend Mike Roach and his great team over at Men's Total Health, over in Metairie at menstotalhealth.net online. And stop in and see how they can change your life today. A simple shot and some knowledge from Mike Roach can get you back up, moving with your energy, get your sex drive back, build your muscle mass, make you feel young again. All online, menstotalhealth.net. Red Stick Sports, a local staple in Baton Rouge to all sports fans, was founded back in 1981 and has remained a family business for over 40 years. Today, they still have the great selection on the floor, but they're also a leader in custom apparel for businesses, sports teams, and other groups. Take it from us, everybody over here at FM Digital Media. They help us out with all of our apparel. Let them help you out today. Go ask for Cody over at Red Stick Sports. Check him out online at redsticksports.biz.
The Jordy Culotta Show is brought to you by A-Bears Lawn Maintenance. Commercial or residential, A-Bears Lawn Maintenance is ready to work. A-Bears can tackle all your homeowners association requirements. Call Blake at 225-485-8022. A-Bears Lawn Maintenance.
Get Gordon and get it done. Get Gordon and get it done. Corrects done. Personal injury done. Workers' comp done. Truck wrecks done. Get Gordon and get it done. Get Gordon and get it done.
Back here to a Wednesday edition of the Jordy Culotta Show, built by our friends over at RMB Builders. Get in touch with Rhett and the crew at rmb-builders.com, or on Instagram. You can hit them there every day. Jacques is with us every Wednesday. Love our segment with JD at Jacques Doucet on Twitter. He's at WAFB and is covering all things Baton Rouge, South Louisiana, whether it's Saints, Pelicans, Southern, LSU. JD and the team over at 9 Sports have it for you at WAFB. JD, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning. How's everyone doing today? Lloyd,
Good.
Stewie?
Good.
JD?
Boots on the ground on campus. Got to watch out.
Haley Van Lith watch, right? The pigtails out of the portal.
I expect this to happen.
From what I've heard from the get-go, Coach Mulkey had a relationship with her and the family going back to Baylor when she recruited her at Baylor and almost got her. And, why, if you're Haley Van Lith, why would you not go to LSU when we're in a time of NIL money, opportunity to win a championship? If she went to Iowa, she would be paired with Caitlin Clark or whatever, but you're in Iowa and it's cold and maybe not the NIL opportunity. So yeah, I think the plan is to get her, the Anissa Morrow girl from DePaul, who's in the portal, I think is someone else they want to add, and then perhaps add one more role player to get 3 signees before next season. And throw that in with Michaela Williams, Leah Del Rosario, Janae Kent, Angelica Velez, the number 1 recruiting class in the country. And you're talking about good problems to have. How do I play all these people,
All right. I think they'll have more people coming in. I think that they're having to tell people, we'll get back to you, or, and even having internal conversations of, do you keep the best, or do you keep the roster intact?
Yeah. There's some girls on that team that just won the championship. They're great girls, but maybe they didn't play a whole lot. And do you have to take a look at it and say, okay, what are we doing here? Are we moving forward? Can you improve, right, or not?
It's tough conversations, but it happens to elite programs, and this is the time when it happens. Really kind of the most is when the rocket starts to take off. Where you're starting to create the standard of what the players are going to look like every year.
It's how much it's changed in 2 years is really an amazing story. Mm-hmm. To go from being able to fire a shotgun in the PMAC and not hit anybody at home games to now, how many season tickets are they going to sell next year? 7,000, 8,000? Could they sell 10,000 season tickets for women's basketball? I don't think there's going to be a drastic change to the schedule from what I'm hearing. It may be a little bit better here and there, but
it shouldn't be. I know that the ticket buy. I hear the gripe,
yeah.
But I also heard a lot of the praise that she was getting on the desk during the Final Four coverage by sitting coaches. Ole Miss's head coach, Tennessee's head coach, and I believe Stanford's head coach was all on the desk covering, and they are all kind of like trying. They were like, well, Mulkey played this soft schedule going into the season. Like 2 of them were like, yeah, you know what? I'm kind of looking at my schedule now thinking she's got fresh legs. Her team looks like they're ready to fight. Everybody else looks like they're drained, and maybe it was that schedule at the beginning that maybe, kind of went into that.
Well, the one thing that you learn from covering a championship team like this, a national championship, is how long the season is. For example, covering the 2009 LSU football team. That thing just keeps going and going and going. And by the time you get to the end, you're exhausted. You're always moving on to the next thing. And you think back, man, the second game of the year against Texas, that was this huge game. And all this ESPN College Game Day and this and that. And yes, it was a huge game. But you think about it, you can't throw a parade September the 12th. Mm-hmm. You got so much more work to do. And at the same thing here, LSU obviously is now beyond, okay, we need to create an event. We need to bring UConn in and get 10,000 fans and shake a bunch of shakers and, the old days of the Pack the PMAC throwing the airplanes at the car to win a car. Okay, that is ancient history now. Now you're in a Final Four national championship mindset of what's the best thing to do for our team. And, you can win a bunch of non-conference games and you can have a top 10 team come in and draw a big crowd and all that. But at the end of the day, it's about early April and South Carolina losing to Iowa on Friday night to open the door for you to beat Iowa to win the national championship. Whiplash there in the last 48 hours. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously it worked out pretty well for LSU. Fresh legs. They don't play a lot of players, right? They didn't last year.
That's right. What do you expect, or anything at all, from a spring football game?
From what I heard, kind of talking to Michael Bonnet, and, you know, it's going to be more of a scrimmage type deal. You know, it ain't going to be, here's the purple team and here's the white. I don't think it's going to be that. I could be wrong. I don't know. But, you know, you hear from coaches, too, as vanilla as this thing is, they don't like putting out tape for anybody to look at. Now, I mean, and the running back situation is, you know, I went to the Mikeys the other night, the big student-athlete thing. I saw Josh Williams there. He's not going to be back till June the 1st. What's going on with John Emery? So they don't have a whole lot of running backs available to make this thing function. And how many offensive linemen do they have? 7? Something like that. So how do you break this thing up? So we were talking at the station. Southeastern and some other teams have done a kind of cool thing where it's offense versus defense. And if the defense gets a sack or something, they get points. And you could do like a point system. So, I mean, I don't know we know what Jaden Daniels is. We kind of know what Garrett Nussmeier is. I don't know if there's going to be any big revelation. The coaches, for the most part, are all the same. John Jancic is now the special teams guy. He talked to us yesterday. Maybe watch the kicking. I don't know. You know, Ramos was 10 of 14 on field goals last year, and it sounds like, you know, Nathan Dybert is kind of hanging around in the background for his opportunity. So, I think it's just a case of bringing the football team out. We go to Tiger Stadium, the band plays, we get a little shot of adrenaline, and then after about 5 minutes, it's this might be boring.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I think. What do you think? Is there anything you're looking for?
I'm with you. I think that this is going to be very, very bland. I think it'll be very watered down. I think there's two concerns here, and you touched on both of them. First is the health of the team. I don't think the numbers make a lot of sense to split up and run a game type scenario. And then, I mean, you know, they're football coaches, man. You know, I mean, like they're without question, the most nerve riddled, over anxious, just just cannot keep everything a secret type.
If I can quote Charles Hannegriff, college football coaches are more paranoid than drug dealers. I still remember that line.
It's a great one. It's a great.
Who's that?
They're great. I mean, it makes it's.
Who's up there in the north end zone? Is that from Alabama? Is that guy from Georgia?
I mean, I remember like.
Did you see that license
I remember
plate?
Being a freshman at Catholic High.
As a drug dealer,
and there was a helicopter that flew over the practice field at Catholic High, and Dale Weiner made everybody on the team lay down where they were because he thought somebody was taking pictures of the formation. I mean, I remember even like being like 14 thinking, if they are, you know what I mean? Like, you still got Travis Minor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you still can pitch it to him. I mean, it's like, this is too much, man.
It's that scene in Goodfellas, right? Oh!
Yeah, right.
It's my lucky hat. I don't go unless I have my lucky hat. Karen! Karen! They never would have found it, Karen!
I flushed it.
That's all we got.
Oh my God, that seems so rough.
It is.
He's going through it. But it says, just on LSUsports.net, it says the format of this year's spring game will be offense versus defense scrimmage, and it will also feature special teams work, SEC Network Plus, and on the radio as well.
I mean, I think it's totally, they're married to football, to the SEC Network, and they're going on TV. And we got to present something.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, let's just go through the route tree. You know what I mean? Like, do pregame warm-ups with them. Yeah. You know, let the band play and let them interview Kelly, and let's get the hell out of there.
Yeah. Throw it down to Coach Kelly on the field. Well, it's a second year. Guys aren't throwing helmets in practice anymore. We feel confident. You know, just like some on-the-field stuff.
I've shut the media out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the play. I mean, that's the formula. First year, wherever you're at, you know, kind of butter them up. SEC
Get the hell out.
SEC Western Division champs.
When Coach
See you in the
O,
fall.
Yeah, I'm going to play the Zurich.
When Coach O was the interim head coach, and
That's right.
he had not been named the coach, I remember going to
full practice.
Yeah.
Full
I
practice.
remember going to LSU the week of the LSU Alabama game, going to practice like 40 minutes.
Yeah.
that week. Les Miles was throwing us out 5 minutes, August the 2nd.
I remember he was canceling the availability. Like as you were in the parking lot, we'd be sitting there like waiting to get in, and like the text would come across like, "Sorry to inform you, but practice is now closed today."
My favorite story is we were in there and Cam Cameron lines up a trips formation, like 3 wide receivers out to the left. It's like Darrell and Malachi and somebody, and they're shouting at us across, "Turn the cameras off! Turn the camera!" Like this is some innovative thing. And then they go out and play Wisconsin, and it's toss dive to Fournette.
Toss dive.
Scored 1 offensive touchdown.
He nearly got Fournette killed that week on Thursday. They were running live scrimmages. Remember he had a high ankle sprain. Donnie Alexander hit him in the open field on like a Thursday of game week.
That's one of the things I could never understand. Leonard Fournette's sophomore year is one of the greatest years in the history of LSU football. He had that awful game at Alabama. I mean, you could put Thanos in the backfield, running toss dive against 11-man front and not getting the yardage. But I just remember covering him that year and going to Syracuse and all these places. I think Syracuse, he had 2 penalties that wiped out like a 110 yards worth of yardage. One was like some stupid little motion, had nothing to do with the play, but and then for him to get hurt in practice before his junior season was always like, how did that happen? How can you injure Leonard Fournette?
Why would you even practice him? In a full scrimmage, why would you even contemplate practicing that guy? I mean, like,
playbook's the same from last year.
It's like
doesn't need to learn anything new.
What are you even thinking about? Like, you brought it up, and we had this debate. You would be a great resource on this. The best 1 year at LSU. We were talking about Angel Reese because of Shaq's comment last week when he said, Angel Reese is the greatest athlete in LSU history, men or women. Which I don't want to debate that.
I don't know why he said that.
I don't know that I did either. But he said it, and I think he just kind of, he was in the moment. Somebody was asking him about it. He just kind of went Shaq. But the best 1 year.
Brandon Larson, baseball.
Chris Jackson, freshman year.
40 home runs. Okay, I thought you meant like a guy who was only here for 1 year.
No. Just 1 year for Tyrann Mathieu sophomore year, Joe Burrow senior year. Let's take Burrow out. Burrow kind of lives in a world by himself. Burrow's the one on all of the lists. Tyrann Mathieu, Chris Jackson, Ben McDonald. Let me think more 1 year. I mean, I guess Tyrus Thomas wasn't even a year. It was kind of like a half of a season.
I mean, those are all great ones. Chris Jackson.
Angel Reese with the double-doubles. Simone
Leonard
Augustus,
Fournette.
Her sophomore year. Leonard Fournette's sophomore year.
Yeah, Leonard Fournette's sophomore year. He was the leader. I mean, and some people say, what do you mean the leader for the Heisman? They do one vote at the end, and that's it. There's no such thing as being a leader. But when he was going into that Alabama game, he was the leader to win the Heisman.
September and October, he was the best player in college football. The fact that he was not invited to the Heisman ceremony tells you everything you need to know about Les Miles. I mean, he had the best player in the sport for the first 2 months, and he ran the wheels off of him the last month, where he wasn't even relevant. It was like he wasn't even he was a shade of who he was.
Yeah. No passing game to complement the best player, best running back, a freaking nature. One thing that Brandon Harris told me one time that I always remembered, and maybe a little melodramatic, I don't care, it sounds great. He says, when he used to get the snap and turn around and hand to Leonard Fournette, he could literally kind of feel the ground shake beneath his feet.
I believe it.
Because Leonard was putting so much power into the ground when he was stepping towards the handoff. And I remember he came on campus, he's a freshman, and I remember why Leonard Fournette looked 40 though? Like, I mean, he looked so old for like a freshman.
Pregnant.
He did. And remember when he got the braces?
Yeah.
it was like your dad getting braces.
Yeah, that proves he's a kid, right? He's got braces on, right? He may look like, Adonis or whatever.
I'm telling you, though, to Brandon Harris's point, Leonard Fournette's freshman season, the night that he got his head taken off on the kickoff team by
Reuben
Foster at the start of overtime, that night, they ran a sweep to the sideline. That I was standing on the field that night, and they ran a sweep to the sideline that night with Fournette and had that Alabama defense chasing him, and literally the ground was rumbling underneath our feet. Like it was, you could feel it. Like it was like a stampede. Well, it was like a bunch of bulls running downhill.
Harris told me in that 2015 Alabama game that Leonard in the huddle was saying, change the play. Please change the play. They know what's coming. This is not going to work. And Brandon's like, I can't change the play. It's out of my hands or whatever. So I think he had like, I don't know, it was like 15 yards on his first 15 carries.
Well,
I mean, just
19 for 31.
I think the first carry they gave it to him, he was like, LSU was like backed up in their own like 5. They turn, like just toss it to him, and he like bounces, and he almost gets, he almost bounces it out, and somebody comes behind him and like chases him and like grabs his legs and wrangles him up, and you were like, oh, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
They're in big trouble. Like they don't have a plan. They looked over at Les. They shot the camera to Les, and he was like, run it again.
It's ancient history, but I remember doing a live shot in the parking lot. The 2:30 CBS game was Ole Miss and Arkansas. That was that game that went overtime. The crazy play, the lateral, what was the 4th and something? Because Ole Miss had beat Alabama earlier in the year.
That was, remember Alex Collins, the running back. It was like 4th and 15. And he got
he threw it and he pitched it back.
He pitched it back, and they got the first down. They ended up winning the game. It was the craziest win I've ever seen. It was nuts. I mean, it was wild.
So when Ole Miss lost,
right?
I mean,
yes,
that
Arkansas,
like
yes.
the nose was bloody at that point. And like, okay, we take out LSU, we're going to win the West, and we're going to go. And certainly Derrick Henry that night was a bull, and he just wore them down.
Remember him running over Jamal Adams?
Yeah, that late run, like he was stiff arming him the whole.
That was like his Heisman moment. I mean, like that was like his moment.
That's the story too. That the next day when we woke up at the hotel, I was wearing a purple and gold, red rock and blue shirt, and we were trying to eat breakfast, and there was some old lady in line, and she was looking at me. I'm, oh God, she's going to tell me something, And she comes up to me and goes, "We're really sorry about your team." Yeah, you're really sorry about my team. You just want to piss in my cornflakes this morning, after our team got whipped.
Yeah, I hate to see that happen to y'all.
Chili says, Jordy, the OTB interview with Tim Williams with y'all told everything. Do you remember that when we had Tim Williams on? He was going into the draft, and he was back in Baton Rouge, and that was the year after that game.
Okay.
And we said, Tim, what was y'all's plan when y'all played LSU? Like, would y'all really kind of game plan for anything else? And he was like, no. And he was like, what would y'all think during the game? And I mean, he would be like running off the field and be like, I can't believe these crazy dudes keep running the same play. They won't change the play. I mean, it was just like they could not get over how dumb LSU was. I mean, and now to hear like stories like Fournette's even in the huddle being like, this ain't gonna work. This is not going to work. I mean, we got to change the play.
And guys like Brandon Harris, certainly there's some accountability there. Brandon could have done things better. But you take a look at a lot of quarterbacks during that era, and you just feel like they were failed.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
the leadership of top, Cam Cameron making the money he made to roll that out there. I mean, Anthony Jennings and those guys, I mean, they were struggling to hit 100 yards passing in 2014. Just give me something, and we could have a chance to beat Alabama. I mean, I think I think Anthony Jennings threw for 90 yards in that Alabama game in 14 where
Vidal Alexander got the
Kendall Beckwith recovers the fumble at the 5, and all they got to do is punch it in, and it's theirs, and still
Alexander gets
the penalty, kick the field goal, then the kickoff out of bounds. Couldn't tackle him inbounds as they marched down the field.
That was Blake Sims.
Blake Sims, good call. I was about to think of
Sims. That's the night that Lane Kiffin ran that 2-point conversion. Remember, he tipped his hat across. He tipped the visor like he hit the 2-point conversion. It was kind of like.
Well, they ran the play where they lined up Big Boy at the tight end spot.
Yeah.
And nobody.
Mike Williams.
And then they rolled him out, and he caught a big pass, and he rumbled to like the 5 or whatever. And so, yeah, those were those days. I mean, you're entering an era now where you look back and you say, well, okay, when you're winning 8-9 games a year, you're winning. Don't be greedy. But then you look back and say, we could have been so much better.
Oh, you wasted so much talent.
Yeah.
That's the part that gets you. Like, it's one thing to claim 8-9 wins a year means something, and it does in college football, right? Like, I mean, they celebrate that yearly at Iowa and Texas Tech.
Arkansas just had rings made.
I mean, they
For the Liberty Bowl.
But they don't have 12 first and second rounders coming through here every single year. You know what I mean? Like, the amount of talent that he left on the corner during those years is a crime. I mean, look at Russell Shepard's NFL career. You know, I mean, like, the guy, he nearly quit LSU. Remember that? I believe the Peach Bowl you and I were at. It was Mettenberger, Hill, and Landry when Clemson beat him.
Yeah.
And remember, he's like sitting on the bench. He's like chilling. Like, he was like, I mean, like, Russell Shepard's just like, He's just like sitting back there, like not even. It's like he's not even on the team, and you're like, this guy's a pro. You know what I mean? Like he's just. You're not even paying any attention. Nobody's even coaching this guy. I mean, it was so maddening to look back and like to be in those moments with those teams and be like, this is amazing how. And it was like even when they had offense, like the Hill, Landry, Beckham, Mettenberger year, they didn't have a defense.
Yeah,
Like, you got a defense every single year. You had defense every year. How did you blow this?
You got to pick one or two.
Yeah, I talked to Aaron Murray about that Georgia game. He was a quarterback, and he said that was like his favorite college game to ever play in. They were 44-41 in Athens. Mm-hmm. Last time LSU's been to Athens because of SEC scheduling and whatnot. But that was the back and forth. And I just remember late in that game, Jalen Mills jumping up and down, shouting at somebody. They were all shouting at each other because they blew a coverage. And
he was shouting at Craig Lawson. Because they were
Dan Mullen.
They were touching.
Dan
Lawson
Mullen
up.
told the secret on Craig Lawson. Craig Lawson's junior year, Mississippi State came in here, and LSU beat them. And Lawson was actually the SEC Player of the Week because he returned a 100-yard pick six. But that night he gave up 12 or 13 receptions because Mullen just every time he'd get a one-on-one, and he'd go on loss. And then after that, I mean, whoever they were watching that film, and they would just go right at him. They would go. I mean, he couldn't stop anything in the pass. He was great against the run.
Yeah,
but he just couldn't. He couldn't guard
that national championship game against Alabama. I mean, this is ancient history, but obviously that's where everything turned that day because Les had beaten Saban in 2010 on the Reuben Randall catch and run and the D'Angelo Peterson river left fake and they had beat him in Tuscaloosa 9-6 that year. I actually remember listening to post game. We were stuck in traffic trying to get to Birmingham. Mm-hmm. Didn't get back to our hotel about 4 a.m. But I remember hearing some Alabama caller on the post game saying, "Well, as long as Les Miles is in Baton Rouge, I just don't see. We're not going to be able to win. This is just going to keep happening. And I remember going in a national championship game and fans were like, we're so happy we got Les Miles. He's a player's coach. He doesn't shout and yell at the players and belittle people like Saban does. And if he would have won that game, it would have been two national championships for Les Miles and 2 for Saban. Mm-hmm. And it took this right turn. Yeah. And, is it going to be the same with Kim Mulkey and Dawn Staley, in which everyone thought that Staley was going to get her third easily, and then all of a sudden Kim's got 4 and Staley's got 2, and is Mulkey about to take off? I don't know, but yeah, we still talk about it. Some of the people that went to that game and say Les Miles still owes me $3,000 or $2,000 for my hotel and game tickets and everything I spent in New Orleans to watch that game. I don't know how you got 40 days to prepare for a game and that's what you roll out. It's just anyway. 11 was that 12 years ago now?
Yeah, I was about to say it's okay. The bad man's gone.
David Reed, can you imagine the players LSU would have lost if the portal was a thing under Les Miles?
That's terrifying to think about.
I mean, like
offensively for sure. I mean, Jamar Chase's dad told me that he went to when he committed to LSU. Some people are like, "Why are you going there? That you're not going to catch a ton of passes." Mm-hmm. And Jamar's dad, his dad's pitch was, "Well, you'll be going up against the best defensive backs in the country every day at practice, and I'll get you ready for the NFL."
Well, Les told Jamar Sr. that he's going to make him a DB.
Oh, a DB. Some Curly Holman stuff right there. That's the Marshall Faulk.
Marshall Faulk and it was Marshall Faulk and he told he did something. That Charlie Holman told something to Ed Reed, where Ed Reed was like, "I'm not coming here."
I don't want to bash too much on Les. The guy won 80% of his games are close, but everyone used to get mad at David Pollack when he'd predict the LSU-Alabama game, but he was exactly right. Okay, they run the ball well, they got a great defense, but what else is in that mix you want me to pick LSU to beat Alabama today?
Right.
And it was exactly right. They didn't do it till they had an offense and spread them out and threw, even late in the game when they had the lead. We can't sit on this. We're still throwing. Clyde was the perfect fit for that offense. But can you imagine putting Leonard back there?
Oh, my God.
And handing off to him out of, a spread formation and watching him just truck people?
As much as you know who would have been the perfect one? Geis would have been in that offense because of his ability to catch the ball. And his ability to run. Really. He would have been. All All right, JD, when are you on the desk?
Well, tonight I think at 6 o'clock we've got they're 70 years of WAFB, so they're gonna do like the station is celebrating its 70th anniversary. So I think they have a 1 hour special tonight, 6 to 7. So that's today. And for those of you who haven't seen it, we sat down with Kim Mulkey for an hour last week. That's on our YouTube page if you want to check out that interview. The other night at the Mikeys, I don't think they haven't brought us Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeyer, so I was able to talk to those two guys. That's up as well. Malik Neighbors giving a soundbite. I think that was the first time we ever heard him talk about his, unfortunate off the field thing in New Orleans during Mardi Gras that I think they moved on from now, but certainly something he learned from. So those things are all up. But yeah, I don't think we have sports today at 6. We have it tonight at 10. But and then LSU baseball going to Ole Miss this weekend.
Yep.
And the spring game, and LSU softball's got a series. They lost to McNeese last night on the road. Not good.
Really?
Yeah, LSU softball.
The rest of the state's all taking pot shots at LSU. You got McNeese taking shots, and you got Lafayette taking shots. Everybody's coming for Baton Rouge.
It was a bad in-state evening for LSU
Not
athletics.
the way it usually goes.
So anyway, just keep up with us and keep doing a great job here.
JD, Jacques Doucet from WAFB, of course, our news partner at 9 and 9 Sports. You can download the app, and we're always streaming there as well. We appreciate you being here on this Wednesday. Make sure to hit that like button, share button, comment button. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning. We'll be getting you set for the weekend as we'll be here on this Thursday. Appreciate you being here. Jordy Culotta Show, built every day by R&B Builders.
Fine young thing.